Hi, folks. Welcome back. From the New York Post. NBC anchor Joy Reid's crying shame by Devine. That's Miranda Devine here that wrote the article, and it says opinion right on it. So, normally I wouldn't be this hard on a so-called news person. I've had my criticisms, to be sure. But Joy Reid, that first line says it all. Joy Reid is a racist sociopath. Those are pretty strong words. And it's the first sentence in this opinion piece. I can't say I could disagree with that. We're going to read the story here, but how do these people get on television and have so much influence? Now, I understand long before cable came around, CBS, ABC, NBC had their own news divisions. News divisions are notoriously expensive. And they very seldom, if at all, ever made a profit. They've always lost money for networks. And then cable came along, CNN, and the rest is history. How possibly is MSNBC making money? Is it off the internet? I really don't know. And how can somebody that spews this disgusting dribble possibly make any money for the seven-figure salary she makes? I don't know. Let's read the opinion piece because it's pretty scathing, but I think it's accurate. How else to explain a reaction to Kyle Rittenhouse breaking down in the witness chair during his murder trial last week? That's what you call Joy Reid a racist sociopath. Well, she's a racist, no question. White crocodile tears to the hate-mongering MSNBC primetime anchor. This is a woman on a seven-figure salary who went to Harvard and has more elite privilege in her little finger than 17-year-old of a single mother who was in Kenosha working as a lifeguard when all hell broke loose in the form of BLM Antifa riots in August 2020. Yet Reid continually plays the victim and makes her living punching down at white people less fortunate than she is. And that, I noticed that's the difference. Everybody didn't like Donald Trump. They didn't like this, didn't like that. But he always punched up. He never punched down. These people always punch down because it's easier. It's basically risk-free. It's amazing. Rittenhouse, now 18, lost his composure last week when he had to recount the moment he was cornered by two men, Joshua Zeminski, who was advancing on him with a pistol in his hand, and Joseph Rosenbaum, a deranged P, I won't say the rest because it'll screw up the algorithm, just out of the psych ward, who had already twice threatened to kill him. And there she is there. How can you possibly spew that hatred, the readout? His face crumpled as he tried to squeeze his eyes together to stop the tears, and his body shook with great shuddering sobs. This is exactly how a brave, manly young man behaves when he doesn't want to cry or show weakness. Up until that moment, he had answered questions with admirable composure, and he did. I saw a lot of the trial. But the memory of taking two lives, albeit in self-defense, clearly rests heavily on him, as would anyone with a conscience. His lawyer told the court on Friday that Rittenhouse is in therapy and has post-traumatic stress disorder due to the shootings. The authenticity of his emotion was evident to everyone but a sociopath. Yeah, exactly right. Kyle Rittenhouse put on quite a show for the nearly all-white jury in this murder trial, Reid sneered as she responded to his tears. She described him as a novice actor attempting to convey sorrow. It was Razzie-worthy performance in my view, but I'm not the target audience for this sick show. Target audience? Yeah, I mean, he broke. He broke. The pressure that's on this kid, how would you like to know at 18 years old, in a week, maybe 10 days, your life, for all intents and purposes, will be over? It's amazing to me. How do they allow these people to even be on cable news to tens of millions of people. I'll never understand. She is no better than the sadist on Twitter who posts photos of Rittenhouse crying and fantasizing about him spending the rest of his life in jail being anally RAPD. Yeah. Ever notice the hatred and the bitterness and the anger in these progressive morons? They're incredibly unhappy people. Don't get me wrong, there's conservatives that are unhappy too, but these people make their own personal misery and hatred. They make it so well known to everyone around them. And everything they touch and everything they do. Well, Donald Trump said it best. Well, how did he put it at that one rally he had not too long ago about wokeness? Everything it touches turns to shit. And he was being kind. Reid was outraged that Rittenhouse is being prosecuted in nearly all-white jury before a white judge in a country where white evangelism, I always have trouble with that word, is often excused, if not worshipped. Well, considering she said 90% of Kenosha County's population is white, it's hardly a surprise that a jury would be majority white. Okay. Like going to Juarez, Mexico, and complaining that all of the jury is Mexican or Hispanic. I mean, what do you expect? She trotted out all the lies about the Rittenhouse trial, which one of her guests described as white privilege on steroids. Funny little side note, I heard Kyle Rittenhouse say after he was found not guilty that if a young black man had been in his spot, would he have gotten the resources and the things that he needed to defend himself in court? And he wondered about that. Sound like a white supremacist to you? These elite, progressive monsters, how do they get, they talk about freedom of speech and conservative people, what we're going to do, we're not going to take away their freedom of speech. When it comes to conservative people that love the country and the Constitution, we won't take away their freedom of speech, just their freedom of reach. And how do these pieces of garbage get their reach to millions and millions, tens of millions of people, 4 or 5, 6 times a week? In that sense, she was echoing Joe Biden, who prejudged Rittenhouse as a white supremacist. I hope Rittenhouse sues him first. Of course, he can't be brought into court till after he's president, but that won't be much longer. I hope he sues them all into the Stone Age. And here's the thing that I want more than just kid to get all that money from these people. I don't want this undisclosed amount nonsense. I want all of the money, especially the biggest one, to be put out in the public news. Radio, television, everything. I want everyone to know exactly how much these morons had to pay. Who prejudged Rittenhouse as a white supremacist and the Vermont ice cream merchants Ben and Jerry's, which I won't eat anymore. Even though they do say they make damn good ice cream. The Rittenhouse trial proves again that our justice system is racist. How would this trial be going if he was a black 17-year-old that crossed state lines illegally carrying an AR-15 and shot 3 white protesters? First of all, he never carried an AR-15 across state lines. That's a lie. Second of all, if you go to Vermont, where Ben and Jerry started, it's like 99% white. So let's cut through the crap, shall we? Isn't there any duty of care of these hate mongers to get basic facts right? Of course not. And here's the thing, though. People call them on it, and how come they get away with it? How come they get away with it? Why don't the millions of people that watch these shows, are they that many zombie cult members out there? Is it really gotten that bad? Have we lost 30, 40 million of the American people to this nonsense? Brainwashed cult members, zombies, just wandering around, just spouting the talking points of these idiots? Is that what really has happened? Is that possible? Rittenhouse belonged to Kenosha, unlike the violent Antifa terrorists who were busting from the liberal wastelands far afield like Portland and Seattle to assault police and burn the town down. His father, grandmother, aunt, uncle, cousins, and best friend all lived there. He worked as a lifeguard in Kenosha and just finished his shift on the day in question before he volunteered to help clean rioters' graffiti off the local school. He regards Kenosha as my community. He did not carry a gun across state lines as media luminaries falsely claim, and AR-15 in Kenosha was in a safe. It was the kid that bought it for him. It was in that kid's stepfather's safe. Nor was it illegal for a 17-year-old to possess a gun in Wisconsin, the court has heard. But for Joy Reid, he is guilty of murder because he was born white. And that's exactly right. It would be like, no, I don't know if there are people or younger people that listen to this. David Duke from a few years ago was a fairly prominent white supremacist. He even ran for local office, statewide office in one of the states in the South. I forgot which one. If he had a show like this, spouting his hatred and his bitterness and his racism for everybody to see, that would be hell to pay. But these people can go on night after night after night after night and spew this hate, fuel racial tensions, split large sections of the country, pit them against another. How do they get away with it? I'll read this again. But for Reid, he was guilty of murder because he was born white. Every night she spews hatred against white people. Who knows what pathology drives her? But it's not healthy for her or any of her dwindling audience. Shame on MSNBC for elevating such a hate-filled racist to prime time. And by the way, how many staff members are in MSNBC in that building that are all white? And they sit there and listen to this every day. So what they do is they admit they're sorry because they're white, so that makes it okay. The whole thing is so twisted. She has zero charisma, and her ratings are lackluster. As my grandma used to say, she has the personality of an egg. But for some infallible reason, she has Teflon protection at the network. Yeah. Even after being caught with homophobic and anti-Semitic comments on her blog, she implausibly pretended her blog had been hacked and got a free pass. Remember that? How is she protected? But hateful bigotry still informs her every word. When talking about the Virginia gubernatorial election, for instance, she said Glenn Youngkin won because education is code for white parents who don't like the idea of teaching about race. What is there to teach about race? History of the country? Making white kids feel bad because something maybe their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather did? That's insane. When Winsome Sears became the first black woman to win the office of lieutenant governor in Virginia, rather than acknowledge the achievement, Reid griped that Republicans demand credit for voting for black candidates. She then nodded along vigorously as her guest smeared Sears as a black mouth who justifies and legitimates the white supremacist practices. Reid has called black Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas Uncle Clarence as an Uncle Tom. A little side note, by the way. In the book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Uncle Tom is the hero. It's another character that was the turncoat on his own people. So that's in a way that's so ignorant of history that you don't even know that. Why would you think the daughter of immigrants would be more grateful to the country that gave her everything? But no, any chance she gets, she attacks America as irredeemably racist. Joy Reid is the embodiment of the wealthy black elites whom Representative Burgess Owens, I love Burgess, he's great, describes as having done the most damage to the black community by joining forces with white leftists to divide Americans. So I asked the question, how is she allowed to do this? How is she allowed to spew this hatred night after night after night after night? And MSNBC and all the rest of the people in the news business say nothing. Absolutely nothing. What a despicable woman. So I guess the first sentence in this article was absolutely correct. Joy Reid is a racist sociopath. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.